describes his life as simply a tragedy. He never knew the love of God outside of a church building until he met a homeless man that was pushing around a shopping cart full of Bibles.
And then he met a pastor that hung in there with him, a man that had a long record and a lot of rage. But then God.
I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up, my mom and my dad weren't serving Jesus or going after Jesus, so I don't come from a background of that. I was actually, at 11 and a half years old, my mom and dad, they got divorced, and my mom couldn't handle me, so she put me into a boys' home. So they put me into a place called the Masonic Homes, or the Freemasons. So I went in there, and then by the time I was 12, I was a drug addict. I was addicted to pretty much anything I could get. And I was in there for about 5.5 years, and I got kicked out. And when I came home, my stepdad told me I could never be a man because he said real men are Marines. And so I just got in fights with my stepdad. I said, I'll show you. So I joined the military, and I joined the Marine Corps, went to boot camp down to Parris Island, and came out of there and was brainwashed, man. I mean, it washed with the wrong substance. So I actually came out, went home, went back to base, went through my SOI training. And then after School of Infantry, I started to party again. And then I told them I wanted to go home, and they said no. So I went AWOL and went anyway. And I went to my house, stole a bunch of money in drug deals, and then drove out to Colorado. And I was a fugitive from the military. Went and got arrested about a year later, and just the cops busted me and then ran my license, and it was over. And then they put me in jail, extradited me across America in a jumpsuit, put me in the brig down at Camp Lejeune. I was in there for about 8.5 months in military prison. Came out, and I was on base awaiting orders. So I was kind of in a limbo place, and I didn't want to be there. And I asked them, I want out, and they said no. And so I went away. I ran away again. I went out back into the Rocky Mountains, went and hid out there, got a job out there at a ski resort, just working as a fugitive. Then got pulled over in a traffic violation about a year later, got extradited across America again. Got put in jail, put back in the brig again, orange jumpsuit. By this time in my life, I had $14,000 in court costs to pay back because of the extradition fees and all that stuff involved. So I went, and they let me out of the brig after about 8.5 months, which is that military jail down there. And then they kicked me out, gave me a bad conduct discharge, which is, they call it a big chicken dinner. So pretty much it's not an honorable discharge, so it doesn't look good on applications. So I went and got jobs, lied on every app, to get jobs. About a year and a half later, I met a girl. We moved in together. After a couple months, I tricked her into thinking I was a cool guy, and we ended up being together. I would get job. I worked in sales because I was a good manipulator. I sold drugs, so I could sell anything pretty much. And I'd quit when it wasn't right for me, which was in a couple months. So each couple months, I'd get another job. Then my girl got pregnant, and we ended up a year and a half into our relationship having a daughter. When my daughter was born, I realized I could never be a father, and I just lost it. I couldn't be a dad. I didn't know how to be a dad. My dad wasn't there, for me like that, because they got divorced, and it was a hard relationship. Not that my dad was bad. He just didn't know any better. And if a father doesn't have Jesus, then it's really hard for him to know how to be a father, because if they don't know who God is as a father, you can't father. It's impossible, man. So I just became suicidal and depressed, and I wanted to just be done with my life. So my girlfriend, after a few months, she's like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I don't want to be with you anymore. You're a liar. I hate you. And, it just became this hate relationship. I told her, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. And, and I won't be around anymore. If I can't have you and can't have my daughter, then I don't want to live. Then she told me that she was going to leave me for another man. She didn't have anybody specifically in mind. And I said, fine. I became outrageous with rage. And I told her that if you ever leave me for somebody, I'll kill them, then I'll kill you, then I'll kill myself, and our daughter will be left with nobody. And if that's really what you want to do, and that's how I live my life. And so she stayed with me for 7.5 years of my daughter's life. And for that time period, for 7.5 years, my daughter grew up with her father as a liar, a thief. I stole, killed, destroyed. And that was the nature that I lived in. And some people say that we were born into sin. which is true, but we weren't just born into sin. Our minds were cultivated by the very enemy of God, by the one that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. You know, self-righteousness is a dangerous thing where people think that they're okay because they're not okay. Without Jesus, ain't happening.